Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin Shives. I'm a partner here in the SSF Consulting Group. With me today is Earl Hunt. He is our Senior Solutions Engineer. Here at SSF, we work with a variety of VC entities within our audit and tax practices. And it's through that connection we've seen some of the challenges that our VC clients face with accounting and reporting requirements. And that's why we're really excited to share with you today our Sage Intacct configuration that addresses many of these challenges. For those that may be new to SSF Consulting, we focus on three primary service offerings. It's technology, internal audit SOX, and outsourced accounting. Today is all about technology. I've listed on this page our offerings and the different platforms that we currently work with. Sage Intacct being the focus for today, of course. Now, from an agenda perspective, it's pretty tight. I'll provide an overview of the Sage Intacct platform generally, and then I'll turn it over to Earl, who will take you through a few slides of setup and then right into the product. We'll also leave some time at the end for some Q&A. If it's one thing that we've learned from COVID, it is being in the cloud is absolutely essential. You must have flexible systems that you can access from anywhere and at any time. Sage Intacct is full cloud. Everyone is always on the same version, and there are quarterly updates to the product that require no action by the users other than reading the release notes to see what new updates, features, and functions are available. Another important thing is Sage Intacct is an open API system. And what that means is that you can maximize your integration opportunities with other systems that you already have in place. Sage Intacct also has this active marketplace. I think of it as the App Store, where many best-in-class cloud platforms have already pre-built integrations to Sage Intacct. There are many that you'll find there. Common ones that we work with all the time are like Bill.com and Expensify. But if you go there, you'll recognize a lot of names. Sage Intacct is the only accounting platform that is preferred by the AICPA. By that, I mean endorsed by the AICPA. As accountants, we all love that because they set all the standards. One of the most important things about Sage Intacct for us as a partner with them is that since 2015, they continue to be a leader in satisfaction, which is absolutely essential for us. We don't want to bring anything to our client base that is not going to bring the highest satisfaction possible, especially with a software platform. Now I'll turn it over to Earl, and he'll take you the rest of the way.
Thanks, Kevin. So we work with a pretty healthy of VC firms and VC service providers. And what is on this slide is what they tell us are the challenges in their VC accounting and reporting. The first challenge is usually they're using QuickBooks or Xero or something similar to that, and they end up having to log in and out of multiple systems if they're managing a management company, a general partnership, and multiple funds. Those would typically be in multiple instances of QuickBooks. Oftentimes they're using systems that are desktop based, not cloud access. And so that limits the accessibility to the systems and can cause issues where you can't access the system when you need to. Also, because of the multiple instances in QuickBooks and some of the other systems, then there's a lack of visibility across multiple entities. You may want to take a look at performance across multiple funds and more of a consolidated view, and that's not possible if you're working with multiple instances, an instance for each of your particular entities. They also tell us that they have lots of reporting limitations. Typically, these starter type systems lack the kind of detail in the system itself to create the necessary reports in the required formats. And so that often leads to exporting information out from your accounting system out to Excel. and having to spend quite a bit of time in manual manipulation of the spreadsheets to get the information into the exact format that you need for financial statements, for investment schedules, partner capital reports, and so forth. And then the third challenge that we often hear is challenges with the allocations, with the applied allocation percentages that line up with the limited partner agreements. And these are typically not done inside the financial system or posted in the financial system. They're also done manually in spreadsheets, which can be both error prone and time consuming. And then when you've got situations where there's multiple scenarios of the applied allocation percentages, depending upon different triggers that may be tripped, then multiple spreadsheets are also applicable there. And again, without posting directly to the financial system, then you don't have the ability to get those detailed reports all the way down to the actual investor level. On the next slide here, we see the key concepts that Sage Intacct uses to remedy those challenges. So we're going to see the concept of real-time dashboards and that ability to really present information in a meaningful, summarized format with the variety of different types of information that we can put onto dashboards. The second concept that Intacct embraces is push-button financial and management reports. So all of the reporting that you need, all of the schedules, all of the partner capital schedules, all of the financial reports, your different statements of net assets and operations and cash flows can be produced directly within the Sage Intacct solution with its very flexible financial and management report writer. The next concept to really take care of that situation where you have multiple funds, multiple entities, maybe you're also tracking a general partnership, a management entity, all of those entities can be managed in one instance of Sage Intacct. Sage Intacct embraces a concept of multi-entity shared, and we'll see when we get into the software that you can then share a chart of accounts across multiple entities. There's no reason to add a fund and have to set up a chart of accounts when you already have that set up for the original fund that you have set up in the environment. We're also going to see that one of the key concepts that supports all of the details that we can provide on the reporting side is the concept of tagging transactions with dimensions. So most systems will rely pretty much upon the chart of accounts as the detail level on your transaction posting. But we'll see with Sage Intacct, it's going to support a subledger for all of your different portfolio companies, your investments, and we can tag transactions all the way down to the individual partner level as well. And then that plays into the final key concept here before we dive into the software, which is allocations, which are supported directly within Sage Intacct. There's support for multiple scenarios. These are automated allocations that can be run at any time, monthly, quarterly, across multiple triggers. And that will take your various line items of revenue and expense and allocate those appropriately all the way down to the individual partner level. All right, I am going to share my screen and we're going to get into the actual system itself. Let me do that. And we'll get into Sage Intacct. So we're looking at Sage Intacct, and it is a true cloud-based system. So I happen to be using a standard web browser. I use Chrome, but you can use any standard web browser on any system that supports that. So that includes Safari on a on an Apple system, on an iPad, and so forth, and any of those standard web browsers. So truly, anytime you have a connection to the internet and a standard web browser, then you can log in to the Sage Intacct solution and start consuming dashboards and reports and transacting in the system. So anytime, anywhere access is really what is provided by that cloud access. So I'm in the system here, and the basic navigation is really this drop-down list. And so we can see it's a full financial system that includes general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, purchasing, and so forth, as well as the first topic we're going to address is a variety of role-based specific dashboards. And so some of the dashboards that we can create in the system very easily are going to be focused on different investment type funds. And we can see some really good examples of the types of information that we can put onto a dashboard. What we're seeing at the top here are KPIs or metrics that Sage Intacct calls performance cards. And these are going to be groupings of information. In this case, we're looking at the different types of investments that we have within the organization. We can also put a lot of graphical information onto dashboards. So here we're seeing a lot of stack bar charts and pie charts and so forth. And those are easily created with the chart and graph wizard that comes with the system as part of the reporting package. We can also put any financial type tabular reports onto a dashboard as well. And we can then color code a lot of those reports, so our eye goes right to the areas that we might want to take a look at in red, or the areas that are really performing well in green. And that capability exists throughout the system as well. Other types of dashboards that we can easily create in the system might be more role-based. Here's one that's specific to a controller role. And so this is going to be a little bit more granular on looking at things like G&A expenses, salaries and wages. These performance cards are comparative in nature, and we can have a visual indicator of whether that expense or that grouping is trending in a positive or negative direction. And then we can drill down from here, from the performance cards, into underlying detail, and then get all the way back into source transactions. We can also put approval queues on the dashboards, and again, another variety of visual type information. And then we can also facilitate discussions among the users of this system. And these discussions can be very specific to what we're trying to solve. This is a question about an AR invoice, and it's hyperlinked back to the AR invoice. And all I need to do is click on the invoice number, and I get directly back to the invoice itself that we're discussing. And we can resolve the issue, make comments, and then have a permanent tracking here of how we resolve that particular issue. Let me go back here to the home page. I'm going to go over to a specific dashboard that is tracking a venture capital fund, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time with the dashboard and a lot of the reports that we have on this particular dashboard. So here we've got that same concept of performance cards, these metrics. In this case, it's tracking our overall return on our portfolio companies. And then we've got those returns broken down by industry type as well. We've got other types of metrics that are showing us our total capital contributions, our cash on hand, our unrealized gains. We don't have any realized gains yet as of 12/31/2019. And you see at the top, we have some filters for this dashboard. So I could change the date for this dashboard to 3/31/20, and then recalculate everything, and then everything on this dashboard now recalculates and redisplays. And so now we see we have a realized gain of $2,150,000 because we liquidated one of our portfolio companies. We also have a filter here, and we're looking specifically at this VC Fund A. If we wanted to look at some of the other funds or entities within the organization, we could easily do that with this filter, or we could build groupings as well. If I wanted to look at funds 200 and 300, I could simply choose that, and then all the information on this dashboard would reflect that combined grouping of funds 200 and 300. These are also, we can also drill down on to the underlying detail here. If I wanted to see the detail on unrealized gains, I could do that and then drill down to underlying detail. Some of the other pieces that we have on this dashboard are those typical reports and schedules that you would see for a VC fund. And so this one here, and I'm going to bring that full screen, is our investment schedule. And this is actually was created in the financial report writer, which is kind of interesting because instead of being a normal statement of net assets or a statement of operations, I've actually turned it on its side, and we're using the individual investments as the rows, broken down by the type of industry, and then within that, the portfolio company, and then within that, the actual investment vehicle that we have invested in. And we can pick up all of those details that you want to see in an investment schedule, like the number of shares. Of course, we already picked up the industry, and then we can start to pick up the postings that we have posted to the general ledger specific to those investments. So for this particular investment here, Exceed Series Seed Preferred Stock, we have the number of shares, we have how much the investment originally costs. We have, we see that this one has been liquidated, and we see the sales price, we see the realized gain, and then we see the return percentage with the color coding that I'd mentioned before. This investment down below, we see the same thing, investment shares, the cost. We haven't liquidated that yet, so we have some unrealized appreciation actually down here at the Series A1 preferred stock for additional mile. And we can drill down into the underlying detail from here as well and see all of those fair value adjustments that have happened inception to date for that investment. And so you see some of the tagging of the dimensions to the investment itself. We use a concept of a type, and so this was a fair value adjustment, and then those dollar amounts specific to that investment. Some of the other components here on this VC fund dashboard are going to include the partner's capital, and this is inception to date as well. And so we have that in any format that you need to present to your partners. This one happens to have the committed capital, the capital not called. Let me bring that up full screen here, starting to get a little bit into the reporting side. But we can track all of that, even though these committed capital and less capital not called and deemed contributions are not financial postings. We can actually post them to a user-defined book and pick those up on this partner's capital report. We also have, of course, the net realized gains on investments, the unrealized gains on investments, and all of that has been allocated back to the actual partner level using the allocation engine that we'll discuss a little bit later. Coming down here, we also have visual representations of our investment value. So this is showing us then over a couple of different years and color coded by the cost of the investment, the unrealized gains, which was the situation last in 2019. And then here in 2020, we see our cost, we see our unrealized gain, as well as the realized gain from the portfolio company that we liquidated in 2020. We can also put those standard financial reports onto the dashboard, statement of operations, statement of net assets. And again, those can be in any format that you need, and those can be specific formats for each of your clients if you're a VC services provider and you want to use this system to track multiple clients. And of course, statement of cash flows, which typically is a fairly complicated statement and oftentimes very specific to the fund that you're tracking or the fund that you're managing. And we can accommodate any format that you need with the built-in financial report writer. So talking about the reporting engines themselves, I'm going to go over here to reports. And the system comes with 3 specific report writers. The first one is the financial report writer, which allows us to create all those financial reports that we're looking at on this dashboard. The financial graph engine, which is used to create those pie charts and bar charts and waterfall charts that we're seeing on these dashboards. And there's also a custom report writer that can pretty much report on any information in the system in a tabular format. I'm going to go over to the report center, and this is where all of the reports in the system are managed in one place. And then I can start to filter those. If I just wanted to see reports that are specific to accounts payable, I could filter that down. If I wanted to see all applications, but just the ones that are my favorites, which is really the ability to toggle this star on and off and make it a favorite for the user that's working with the reports, then I can quickly look at that abbreviated filtered list of the reports that I like to run on a regular basis. And then I can choose one of those reports. Maybe I want to look at an individual partner capital statement. And so I've got a variety of choices here. I can run that report. I can schedule the report to be run on a regular basis. I can run the report just by clicking on the name of the report, which I'm going to do. And then when I click on the report, I'm going to typically get a number of report prompts. And for this one, it's saying, I'm going to run this for limited partner WDC Foundation. But if you wanted to run this for some other partner, either limited or general, then you'd be able to select that from the drop-down list. And then it's defaulting to an as of date of 12/31/2019, but I could choose any other date to run that report. And then I run the report and it runs it to the screen so that I can start to interact with the report. And what you'll see at the top is that once I have the report on the screen, then right from here, I can print the report, which will create a PDF version of the report. I can export it out to Excel. There's not very much need to export out to Excel, but you certainly can. Or you can email the report directly from the screen as well. Once I have the report up, then I can start to interact with the report, drill down to underlying detail. This happens to be a report that's, again, specific to a specific limited partner. So it's really the same partner capital statement that we saw earlier, but it's broken down by the net unrealized gains on investments specific to this limited partner. So this would be a capital statement that you can provide to an individual investor on a periodic basis or an on-demand basis and provide them the detail that they need. And again, the format is up to you. This is just an example format of showing that those different breakdowns in the balance for that particular limited partner. All right. Let's take a look at a couple of those other reports here. And I'm going to go back to the dashboard to take a look. And I want to show you this partner capital inception to date. So I'm going to bring this up and I'll take a look at this report in some additional detail. And of course, this is a very common report that's segregating out the partner capital for the general partners, limited partners. showing your different LPA percentages for the different areas that we've allocated down to the general partner and limited partner level. Any format that you need. This is just an example format. And then we can start to drill down into underlying detail. And so if I were to open up this net unrealized gains on investments, I'm sorry, let me go back up to here, net unrealized, yeah, long-term capital gains. So I'm gonna drill down to the net realized gains on investments and open that up. And what we see here is that we have an allocated entry for the recognized gain, and the allocation engine has actually allocated that gain across our different investors, in this case our limited partners. I'm going to do the same thing here for our unrealized gains on investments for the limited partners and open that up. And what we see here is all of those unrealized gains, those fair market, those fair value adjustments have been allocated down to the individual investor level. So we took those gains that we posted to the actual investment level, and we're able to use those applied allocation percentages and then allocate those automatically down to the individual investor level. And that's how we're able to get this partner capital statement all the way down to the investor level. This is scenario one. And so I have a different scenario set up over here where we had a trigger that tripped, and that trigger changed the way that we allocate management fees. So we no longer allocate management fees to the general partners, and then we actually change the percentage allocation for unrealized and realized gains on the investments. And then we see that those percentages have changed. If we were to drill down into the underlying details, we would see postings for a whole different set of applied allocation percentages that are captured, and we can simply point to those with this same partners capital report and look at what that looks like with that second scenario. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the all the entities being managed in one instance of Sage Intacct. And I know that I've got multiple entities here because I have this designation that says top level. And so when I click on that, I see all of the entities that I have within this environment, this Sage Intacct enterprise environment. So I've got this VC Fund A, I've got a management company, I've got a general partnership, and I've got a couple of other entities as well. If I wanted to specifically be in, for example, the management company, then I just simply click that, and that opens up another tab in my browser. And now I've got my management company open as well as my VC fund. And when I'm specifically in a tab, then anything I do here, any transactions that I post, any dashboards and reports that I run are going to be specific to that entity. From the top level, which we've been mostly in the top level, then I would filter my dashboard by a specific entity or group of entities. Here I can put in transactions that cross multiple entities, and the system will automatically take care of any postings to balance those entities by automatically posting to some due from accounts. And I can look at that really quickly. I can look at all of my entities here, easily add entities if I need to add some additional funds as we go through the life cycle. And then I can also create this mapping of intercompany due froms that are used automatically when I start to post entries payables and that sort of thing that cross multiple entities. We also can manage the chart of accounts in this multi-entity environment from the top level, and then the other entities will see those and basically share those same charts of accounts. So this gives us that consolidated view. It gives us a one login. We can also restrict by entity which users can see the different entities. You might have a fund manager for Fund A, and when the fund manager logs in, he or she only gets to see, for example, VC Fund A, and the other entities are not visible to that person. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the detail that we're getting here, and that ability to tag, what we call tag transactions with underlying detail. I'm going to go over here to my VC Fund A, and I'm going to go over here to my investments and just simply look at my list of investments. So this is how I can accommodate an investment subledger without having to have a GL account specific to each investment. I really just have one investment control account, and then when I post purchases of investments, when I post fair market value adjustments and sales and realized gains, then I post those to the actual investment itself. And you see, for example, we have this top line is investment number 4002. It's just a sequential number. I can track the industry that the investment is in, the actual portfolio company, of course, the investment vehicle, any details that go along with that, the number of shares, the investment manager. And all of this information can be used to slice and dice and filter reports. And I can put that information on reports as well, as we saw from that investment schedule. So this would accommodate as many portfolio companies as you have in your particular funds. The other detail piece that we're always posting to, in some cases with original transactions, and in some cases with transactions that are coming from the allocations, is going to be our partners. It's going to be our general partners. In this situation, we have 2 general partners and 3 limited partners. And so those are financial dimensions as well that we can then use on financial reports, as we saw with the partner capital statement. And then the final one I wanted to show to you is another dimension that we use that depicts the type of transaction that we're posting. And this limits then, again, the number of GL accounts that we have to maintain, because when we post and we purchase some new portfolio companies, then I use a dimension type of cost basis. When we post fair value adjustments, unrealized gains, I use this type 3000 for fair value adjustments. When we sell portfolio companies, I use the sale and the realized gain or loss. So that's how we're able to split an investment into the individual investment vehicle, and the cost, the fair value adjustment, the sale price, the realized gain or loss, by using this concept of the type to segregate that out very, very nicely. I wanted to show you an example of tagging transactions. I'm going to go over to general ledger. I'm going to go over to journal entry. And I'm going to go over to some of the general journal entries. And here is an entry that was originally made when we purchased some portfolio companies. Let me go over here to a purchase that we made early on in the life of the fund, when we purchased quite a few investments. And what we see here is they all got posted to account 12016, but they were specific to Fund A. So we used that dimension, and then we used that investment dimension for the specific detail line investment vehicle, which depicted the portfolio company and the type of investment vehicle. And then here's this type code in operation because this was the original purchase. And so we chose a type code of cost basis. When we went and booked some unrealized gains at the end of a period, then same thing, we posted to the investment GL account, but we used the specific dimension for the fund, the actual investment, and then the type that we used here was a fair value adjustment so that we could segregate that out on reporting. All right, let's switch over then to the topic of allocations. And we saw when we drilled down to one of those reports or one of those line items on the partner capital that we had allocated the unrealized gain all the way down to the general partner and limited partner. And how we're able to accomplish that is with the allocation functionality within the system. I'm going to go over here to general ledger and over to the setup. And this is where we can set up our account allocation definitions. And so we've got a variety of those. And I'd mentioned we have a couple of different scenarios here. We had a trigger that triggered the general partners not getting any management fee allocation and revamping of the allocation percentages that we use for gains and so forth. So these are the individual allocation definitions, and those are really constructed so that they know where to go look, for example, to see the unrecognized gains for the period. They also know where to go to get the scenario allocation percentages. They take that combination and allocate then down to the individual partner level. When it's time to run the allocations, and I simply come over here to generate allocations, and I can put them all of one scenario into a group and run those allocations all at one time. So if I chose allocation scenario 1, and I'm doing it at the end of a quarter, end of a month, as often as you want, when I run this, it's going to run the management fee allocation. It's going to run the remaining net investment loss allocation, the net unrecognized revenue to the partner level, as well as any recognized gain down to the partner level as well. And it's just a matter of hitting generate, waiting for a couple of minutes, and then all of those journal entries would be created. I can go and specifically look at one of those very quickly. And here's an allocation scenario that I ran previously, and I can go down to the net unrecognized allocation that was run. And this is the journal entry that got created that took those unrealized gains on specific investments and then allocated that down to the individual partner level. It actually posts to a user-defined book so that you can either include the allocations or not. And if we've got a couple of different scenarios and we've got 2 different user-defined books where these allocations are posting to, and that lets us basically run the same report, but point at a different allocation scenario. So that takes you out of this whole concept of the spreadsheets, gets you posting all of this detail down to the partner level, right in the financial system, and able to use the robust reporting to produce exactly the formats that you need for all of the different partner capital statements, investment schedules, and financial reports that you need. So I'm going to stop there and hand it back over to Kevin and see if we have any questions. We'd be happy to answer any questions that people have.
We do. We have some. Let me share my screen real quick, Earl. So as we mentioned earlier, or it was mentioned in the chat, you're going to get a copy of this presentation. I'm not going to go through these, but there are several slides in here that recap what Earl went through. And if you see anything in there that you have further questions that we're not going to get to today, by all means reach out and we'll be happy to clarify any of that. So we're off to questions. We've got, Earl, I think you went through this, but if you have some further comments, someone asked, can you show an example of how an investment is entered into the system and how the valuation adjustment is also accomplished? I think you kind of showed that.
I think we saw that here towards the end, where we when I showed the entry that we originally booked to purchase the individual investments, and then how we entered then a fair value adjustment to those at the investment level, and then the allocation later on took that all the way down to the individual partner level.
Great. And then the other question is, does the system calculate realized transactions automatically, i.e. if an exit happens where we get shares and cash along with escrow?
Yeah, so you would need to calculate, what that realized gain is, and that would be part of the booking of both the sale price and the realized gain. So pretty straightforward to be able to do that. If there's a combination of cash and escrow, then that would be part of the proceeds and how that came in, so that you could show that if there's some sort of a receivable that's still happening, you haven't received that from escrow, you could book that in that manner as well. So that really ends up booking both the sale price, the gain on the investment, so you have that for reporting purposes, and then reflect that part of it was received in cash and part of it is through escrow.
Gotcha. And another question, is there an LP portal that connects to this platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the dashboarding that you saw is something that can be accessed through what we call in Sage Intacct a view only or employee user, and you can give an LP one of those user licenses. They're pretty low cost licenses, and we can configure the information on the dashboard that limited partner sees to be ironclad. It's only going to apply to them. They're not going to see anybody else's information. So there's the high security around that. So the system would know, oh, that's limited partner John Smith, and so we're just going to show John Smith information on the dashboard, right? And the drill down and that sort of thing. So yes, that fulfills that need of having a limited partner portal that is secure and shows only the information you want to show to that limited partner.
Thank you. Got a couple more. I'll take these, Earl. Do bank feeds hook up to this system? The answer is yes. And the other thing is, what about management company? Do outside apps like Bill.com and Expensify link to the system? There are integrations between those two systems and Sage Intacct pre-built. So yes. Let's see if there are any more.
There's the bank sync with the system similar to how QuickBooks and Xero does. Yes. So yeah, there's links with hundreds of banks, and it will bring in the cleared transactions, match them up with the per books transactions, leave you with things that you didn't know about, like bank fees and interest and that sort of thing, and let you reconcile those right within the reconciliation itself. So yeah, that works the same way.
Excellent. Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining us today. That concludes our presentation and the time that we had allotted. If you have questions that didn't get answered, by all means, reach out to us and we'd be happy to take you through that. Have a great rest of your day.